It was pitch dark, and I was pretty terrified to make the trek between my house through the woods to my neighbor's house, but I wanted to take her a meal. I remember stepping higher than a Clydesdale horse, going from my yard to hers, and the leaves were crunching beneath my feet, my purse on my shoulder, the dish in my hand. I'm thinking in my mind, it's warm enough that the snakes are surely under these leaves. And so I began to run because I heard a sound from behind slithering. And I thought, there's a snake in the grass, a snake under the leaves. I ran faster. And the faster I ran, the faster the noise became. And by the time I reached the porch steps, I just knew that the snake that was behind me was an anaconda. And it was then that I heard a clunk, clunk on the concrete steps as I jumped to the top of the porch. And I looked behind me and realized that it was my cell phone cord that was draped from my purse down into the leaves. And that was the anaconda that was slithering behind me the whole way from my house to my neighbor's. It might sound like a silly story, but I think that most of us can relate to a time in our life where we were in a really dark place, where big fears seemed to overwhelm our souls so much so that in our mind they grew bigger and bigger, much like the anaconda grew in my mind, my cell phone cord anaconda. That's why I wrote a book about the courageous women of the Bible, is because I am a woman who needs courage in my life on a daily basis. The women in this book were women just like you and me, who were faithful to God, but sometimes fearful, who needed the kind of courage that only God can give us. They stepped out in faith, and as they did, courage grew instead of fear. Deborah was the first woman that I wrote about, and Deborah was a faithful leader, a judge, a wife, a ruler of the Israelite nation who would take a stand when everything around her seemed dark and fearful and ominous. When the men in her life failed to lead, Deborah courageously led. What I want to say to you today, friend, is you don't have to go it alone. Courageous behavior comes as we realize that we're living for a higher cause, a greater good. A better story is being written across the beautifully imperfect pages of your life and of my life. Godly courage is mobilized by an obedient spirit, knowing the power of God is greater than the circumstances that we face. It takes stepping out, believing in God, trusting His greater purpose is for you too. Much like the 11 courageous women I wrote about, throughout the pages of courageous women of the Bible, leaving behind fear and insecurities for a life of confidence and freedom, you and I have been given a choice as well, to wake up every morning and choose courage over our fears, to step out in faith, to believe God has a better plan, that He has a brighter future, that He has a much lighter path for our feet to travel, that He wants to see us do good in our lives. He wants to see us live free and joyful and hopeful. That's my wish for you, is that you would find courage along your dark path and that you would go fearlessly.